What is going on, everybody? Welcome to this 2018 edition of the Design Forum podcast. I'm your host, as always, and joined with me are some of my favorite people in the whole damn world, the menagerie of folks who like to call it Design Forum podcast. We have one, Mr. Nick Lang, lead producer for Forza Motorsports. Sir, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks again, Preston. You're amazing at setting all this stuff up.
Absolutely. We have one, Rocky Rivero, associate producer EA on NBA Live. Rocky, how's it going?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. And joining us at the last moment, Victor. Victor, hey. What do they call you on your business card these days?
Creative producer.
Of what?
I have no idea. Officially I'm the program manager for interactive entertainment for Universal Studios Creative.
Nice one, right? So we talked about that last year. Had you made that jump over to Universal? So you're working back in the theme park world kind of deal?
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. I can't wait to talk about that a little bit. So as we usually do, let's start the show off. Guys, what have you been playing since last year? We'll start with Nick. What have you been playing? What have you been up to? What's been good since December 2017?
Well, there's been a whole lot of good, but are we talking about video games or are we talking about in general?
Talk about you in general. Just any position changes? Have you anything new, exciting? Just what have you been up to?
Let's see. In general, it has taken me nearly a year, but I've graduated from brewing beer to making sourdough bread. Very, very similar. A little bit easier. It's been about the last 2 months that I finally figured out how to make something that was mostly edible. That's cool.
Mostly edible.
I still do, let's see. I try to keep my brewing chops solid by putting cider together. So that's fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of apples in the Washington area. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. Let's see. At work, we went from, shipping Forza Motorsport 7 and working on it for the next 12 months. We put more work into this thing. I'm not supposed to say this publicly, so don't make sure this isn't live. But it's the best Forza Motorsport of all time.
Is that a yearly title at this point, Nick?
So we alternate with another team. So we do Motorsport and then Horizon. And so this year was Horizon's year, the one where they're in England. So
I know what's the difference between the two series?
Forza Motorsport's more about competition and precision and the race cars and the racing. And Forza Horizon is more about the freedom and the exploration that cars kind of give you. They're both all about automotive entertainment, but one's more sport and one's more sort of run around, do crazy stuff.
Are both still kind of toting the sim line? I mean, they're not totally sim. We're not getting into a simulation chamber or anything, but it's pretty much realistic mechanics and physics.
Yeah. So the Motorsport's very realistic as we can make it. Constantly we're improving that. The Horizon one's less realistic. You can jump into the air and you won't die. You can brake late. It's a little bit easier to kind of drift and things like that because there's some assists in the game. But that game's mostly about just drive wherever you want to drive with a car and love that car as much as you want. Whereas Motorsport's more about that precision. So, but that's pretty much been the last year as far as work goes, turning it into a live service. I gave a talk in Montreal at the game summit there about converting a AAA game into a live service game, which is no easy feat when you think about games like Forza Motorsport or Madden, where for years and years, decades in this case, a game is basically AAA, tons of money, moves platforms. People buy the Xbox because of Forza Motorsport. Well, now we need to turn it into a hobby, which, those of us here on this podcast and anybody that's listening, kind of games are a hobby. So that makes perfect sense. But now other people are realizing that games can be a hobby. You can play a game for a year or more as long as the content's fresh and the people are still engaged. Turning something from that AAA big drop massive release on Christmas into something that you can play all year long, that's a challenge. And that was a big deal, turning that corner. I think everybody's kind of doing that these last couple of years, though.
It's really interesting to hear you that because the industry I'm in, software development for websites and stuff, software as a service has been a big thing for years. And to see that games are kind of taking that hint and kind of going, it's not about the once a year. It's the once a year is a big thing, but then we're going to add on to that continually, incrementally. It could be every day, it could be weeks, it could be, continually upgraded. So it's really interesting to see that the game industry has kind of caught on to that trend.
Well, we talked a little bit about that while we were all at EA, software as a service and building and somebody playing a game in perpetuity. And, our favorite game of all time, EA Sports MMA, had live events in it. The idea was it would maintain on forever. That's all pretty cool. But what's interesting to me right now is that everybody was really worried that, if you play Madden for the year, will you never play NBA? If you play Forza Motorsport forever, will you never play Halo? And what we're finding is that, yes, they'll do both, because the entirety of games as a hobby kind of consumes people. And what are they not doing? Right. There's only so much oxygen in the room. So I'd like to think maybe they're spending less time on Facebook so that they can play more video games. And that's cool.
Rocky, what you been up to since last year?
Big life stuff. Moved into a new place. Talked earlier about how we had a Christmas Day puppy for the kids. So that's been a lot of fun. And yeah, man, just lots of gaming. Really, like this year was just such a big year for gaming. As far as news, headlines, video game awards this year, I thought were really well done. I think Jeff Keighley did an amazing job with that and continues to do an amazing job with that. And yeah, just, over the holiday break, just digging into even more games, man. Just still a hardcore gamer. Absolutely love it, passionate about it, and still consider myself blessed and lucky to be working in the industry for as part of a hobby that I like so much.
Nice, man. Victor, about you? What's been good?
Let's see. Had another child.
Yeah, he's having babies.
And there's my kids. Okay, later. Raising my children, playing games when I can. I've definitely slipped into a very producer designer hybrid style role where I am now. So continuing to learn what I can about both, and I find myself on the path of Nick often, seeking out new forms of education in the industry. So I do a lot of reading these days. I find a few games to play that I can sit down for an hour at a time and play, and then other than that, it's raising these kids. But it's interesting. In the current place that I'm in, it is not a AAA game company, but it is certainly a company that has AAA budget. So I find myself as kind of the head of Interactives, teaching a lot and learning a lot about things that aren't necessarily my core competency in gaming. It's not necessarily gameplay, but having some knowledge, trying to teach other people things like questing and engagement loops and things that we think could apply to parks. So that's my current journey.
Nice, very cool, man. I imagine that's a cool crossover for you, man. To be able to take that design brain and kind of apply it to a new medium, something just new and exciting, especially today with technology and theme parks really embracing things like 3D and just all sorts of new cool technology. So I can't wait to see some stuff you're working on.
Yeah, me too,
like
man.
A really good fit.
What was that, Nick?
It sounds like a really good fit. It sounds awesome. I'm so proud of you, Victor.
Thank you, Nick. I wouldn't be here without you. I'd be very complacent. I'm not gonna lie. The constant hunt for knowledge is something that you and the angry creative director Jason Barnes taught me. Also, thanks to him, because when he left the company, I got to take his gig. So yeah, thanks for the raise, boss.
Well, from what I heard, he wasn't doing much, so.
Yeah, it's a little different now.
Yeah, I did reach out to him last week. I never heard anything back. I was hoping to get him on. That would have been really cool to see him around. It's been a while.
Oh, that stinks. We need to get him and Jorge squared away. Those guys are impossible.
Yeah, I've reached out to Jorge as well. This time I got nothing. Not even a single no thank you. For me this year, it's same as last year. It's been brewing my ass off. I mean, really, as you guys know, I'm not in the industry anymore.
Still in software.
Still in software. Yeah, it's definitely a different beast, and it's a unique set of challenges. It's definitely different. Again, going to that SaaS model where things can ship multi times daily if you really wanted to. Going from I think even though EA was agile, but it was still very waterfally, right? I mean, you have a lot of upfront planning. You do this 9-month monolith, you drop it, and then you start that cycle again. So definitely a different challenge. But brewing my butt off. I was telling Rocky off camera, I'm looking back at my year in review. Sorry, brewing. I entered 12 different competitions with 77 different entries, 29 unique beers, 2 unique ciders, 4 unique meads, 27 medals total for 2018.
How do you saying like brewing every weekend?
Every other weekend, I'm doing double batches. I can't do that again. That 2018 was the year I went as hard as I could to try as best I could. Ended up 3rd in the state for the Florida Homebrew Circuit, the little local circuit they have that tracks all the 8 competitions. So I appreciate that, man. Again, you're partially responsible for this behavior. Early on my brewing days, and just the cool the beer events we would do with you and Dale, the tastes and stuff. So,
right.
Gaming wise, I'm still a PC gamer solely. I don't have a next gen console yet.
You don't need it anymore. Crossplay.
It's true. Most of my gaming still consists of couch gaming party games, stuff like Jackbox. I've been picking up a ton of stuff on Steam. Of note, last year you guys made fun of me a little bit for how many games I had in my Steam library. I had 214. I'm proud of it now, so I'm up to only 293 now.
This is a sickness.
I got
that rate of growth has slowed.
A little bit, yeah, I think so.
Those bundles are a hell of a drug.
That's what it is, man. It's $5 for 9 games, and a lot of times they are some of these cool little indie games you'd never get. Just playing a lot of that kind of stuff. Other than that, nothing new, man. Just doing what we do and keep it on.
So wait, tell me about this, Preston. So you've been at the same place for what, 5 years now?
5 years. So I have transitioned into a new project manager role. So last we talked, I was the project manager of the implementation side. So as we got new clients on board, building up their new websites, I'm now actually the project manager for the platform team. So we're trying to create this as more of a SaaS model. We've done a lot of custom work for customers up until the last couple of years. We're going to go into a more SaaS model, building a platform that can then drive down content to all the sites. So I'm actually the project manager of that team right now. Certainly challenges. We're still trying to swim and kind of figure out exactly what this platform should be, what to support. The market we're in is very nebulous. There's a lot of tentacles we could go into, and we're a little conflicted at the top sometimes as far as what we should be working on and getting done. So I'm sure you guys are aware of this. Where 1 week you think this is the most important thing, you start doing work, and all of a sudden something else comes in, and this is the most important thing. It's no different in software development, I think. So definitely
that might be one of the things I struggle with the most, which is what is the most important thing? I should be able to hand everybody a separate piece of paper, and in complete silence, they write down on that piece of paper something that is effectively the same. If not, then my job is failing, and I need to go ahead and make sure everybody understands what the most important thing is. And sometimes people accuse me of oversimplifying, but still, you can't. I'm all right with that. Let's oversimplify right here while you and I are talking, and then we can go make it complicated, because our ability to make stuff complicated is unparalleled in these industries.
One of the other things, Nick, you would always say you can't over communicate.
Yes.
Shifted, I'm like similar to Vic, a designer producer type hybrid role. I can't tell you how many times I will make that statement, maybe a little aside, and I'll be like, so once more, just to make sure, and then communicate it again, and then I follow up with an email, and then I'm telling you, like, it's
you got to say it, you got to draw it on the board with pictures, and then you got to write an email, and you got to walk around and say, so did you read that email I sent?
This is the truth.
Something I learned from you, Nick, a long time ago, though. Unfortunately, that NRS, and nobody reads shit. So, it's a good recap. It's a good way to say, hey, this is the thing we talked about, and you can always go back to this and reference it. But I've learned a long time ago, don't ever make the email the thing. The email is always a supplemental material that you can go back to later.
That's accurate.
I hate to tell you, but you'll probably still make that mistake forever. Because the times that I've been in a meeting, even 2 weeks ago, and I say, but I sent the email. Frick.
As soon as it comes out of your mouth, you're like, yeah, okay.
Oh, I shouldn't have said that out loud.
Was it about the next Forza Motorsport? Anything you want to share?
It's going to be amazing.
Nick, what do you think about the Jeff Bezos memo approach, being in Seattle and whatnot? Do you know about this? I know you do. So
yeah, right. Where well, so you can do that if you're Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. It's like, yeah, it sounds cool, but it's like, what kind of power do you have to have people sit around and read the story like it's circle time? It sounds cool. Like if I had that power, yeah, I'd be like, read it right now in front of my face, read it out loud. But I guess if you're Jeff Bezos, it's effective. I would love to be able to do that, but that's kind of how I feel too.
I'm unfamiliar with it. What's the high level concept?
So he basically killed PowerPoint, and they don't use PowerPoint for their executive meetings. And he feels like getting executives to actually pay attention and to listen and to follow along is kind of like herding cats, kind of like what you did for this podcast. So instead, he's adopted this thing where they write these kind of like long form narratives to get whatever point they're trying to make across. And he sits these executives down and forces them to read these long form narratives that say what he's trying to do. And the reason is because they're executives. They got there through either hard work or through their charisma or whatever, but he knows that they can fake their way through a meeting and not really absorb the information and depend on other people to get them the information. So he has them read these long form memos. I hear it's very effective. I don't have the testicular fortitude to do it at my job, but I think it's an interesting concept.
Isn't he also the one that insists that the vast majority of meetings shouldn't have to take more than 30 minutes? Like the concept of an hour-long meeting to him is like, what the hell are we doing here?
So I've got actually, Victor talked about reading. I've got a couple of really quick books for all of you to read. But the guy that wrote The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Peter Linsoni. Oh my gosh, I'm probably butchering the last name, but he has a couple. They're like really short, 100, 200-page books. And I think I learned from that a version of what Jeff Bezos does in my meetings, which are I never send out an Outlook invite without a top-line subject that's really clearly understood, an agenda, and an expected outcome. And the agenda could even be by the minute, but this is what we will do. And frequently what I'll do is I'll send a version of the document or a version of the information that I want to discuss. And then I'll make it very clear. Like I expect everybody to come prepared to this thing. Sometimes I'll even put in preparation required. And Outlook makes it real easy because you can kind of like turn it into a title and it's in big blue font. And then you can say preparation required. Read this document. Come with an opinion or with insights. Help me understand this thing. And then when I get in there, I'll work through it. And I won't. And I try not to be too draconian, but meetings have a beginning and an end and some points that we need to hit along the way. And nobody's better positioned than producers or project managers to kind of make that cadence happen. That in that sense, it kind of follows the Jeff Bezos format. But the difference is that Jeff sends out the memos and then he gets in the meeting. And if you're not ready to talk about the subject because you didn't read the memo, how long is your career with Jeff Bezos?
Along. I think that's something we kind of employ at my company as well with meetings and trying to understand. There's really like 2 or 3 types of meetings. There's discovery meetings, there's decision meetings, and there's collaborative meetings. And understand
that's interesting. Labeled at the top.
Those 3 meetings will always be different, and the audience can be different. And knowing when to include the right people versus anybody and everybody. It's not always vote by democracy. Sometimes you need to limit just those people where other meetings should be expanded. Sure. Trying to get into good habits of understanding those 3 types of meetings will dictate the length, the number of people, and like the expected outcome. Like, should we in this type of meeting, we're going to have action items. We're going to walk away from here. You're going to have an expectation that something's going to be done, and you will deliver by X date.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
That's really good. Yep.
Cool. Why don't we got?
The thing is that you can do that for your meetings, but you can't do that for somebody else's meetings or your boss's meetings.
Oh, yeah.
And frustration comes from unmet expectations. And if you have the expectation that somebody else is going to do the exact same thing as you, you're almost always going to be disappointed unless you've already kind of reached a conclusion. And that almost never happens, especially if it's if it's a boss. So you kind of have to deal with, here's how I run my world. The rest of the world will either be influenced by it or just carry on by itself. That's tough stuff.
Amen. That's real life every day.
Every day.
Well, we got a short amount of time and a lot of stuff we're going to try to get through. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to talk about games. So if you can, give me the top game you guys have been playing this year. Talk about it, why you like it, and why people should go get it and try this one out. Vic, let's start with you. This used to be your segment, so let's start with you.
Oh, here comes the embarrassment. I would say, you said you're looking for 3 or 1?
No,
or what?
I'm just saying I only had time for 3 games this year.
Yeah.
Oh, same. I mean, I dabble here and there. Here comes the embarrassment. As you know, the newest Monster Hunter did come out this year, and for all the jokes that you guys, for all the jokes, for all the, the nonsense that I've dealt with, this ended up being the top seller for Capcom ever, and they make Street Fighter. This is the one that was online. It was super mainstream. It sold like 6 million in the first few weeks, in the first month or something. So it was crazy.
It did win Best RPG at the VG Awards.
There it is. So now you can't make fun of me. You still can. But played a ton of that, embarrassing amount of that the first half of the year. Obviously, got into God of War, and most recently I'm playing Valkyria Chronicles 4. It's a nice pick up and play strategy game. I can just play an hour, do my mission, and then move about my business. So those are my 3 this year. Oh, wait, no. There's 4. I play lots and lots of mobile. Still Clash Royale, but they just released a new game called Brawl Stars. I think Rocky plays that.
Clash Royale. I haven't tried Stars yet, but Clash Royale, I still I'm years into that game, man.
You know who's heavy into it? Our buddy John White. He's heavy into it.
Really?
Yeah, I see him online, and he cannot hide. So it has the standard, and I say standard with quotes because it's 2018. It has kind of a gem grab style game where you're all trying to loot grab style game, but it also has your battle royale mode. Or it's a pretty cool mobile twin stick game that shouldn't really work on mobile, but somehow it does because it's Supercell. So those are my 4. All
right, Nick, what you been getting into this year game wise?
All right, so that's actually better than I expected, Victor, especially with 2 little kids under 3. That's crazy. This year, 3 games. Xbox informed me that Forza Motorsport 7 is my favorite game. I want to preface that I never use my retail account for work. So there are other people out there with like 3,000 hours in Forza Motorsport 7. And that doesn't count. They'll log in on retail and leave it running at work. That's garbage. So Forza Motorsport 7, still my favorite game. Which maybe we should talk about. I usually warn people, it's not like it's not like working on a game will make it your least favorite game, but you run the risk. You run the risk of saying, oh, I love NBA Live so much. Now I'm working on it. I can't stand playing that game anymore. Or I just don't want to look at it after I shipped it. Now, I've been pretty lucky. MMA and Forza, I worked on them straight through, and I still love them. But I imagine one day that could happen to me. So I'm always cautious. And even in when I was working in illustration and comic books, if you draw Batman, you might not ever want to read Batman again. So that's rough. Anyway, Forza Motorsport 7, still my favorite game. The Leagues mode in it is actually now my career mode. I used to be a little bit trepidatious about running in multiplayer matches there, but it's gotten a lot better, especially where they set you up in tiers. So you kind of find your level where everybody just wants to race. They don't want to be jerks. And so it actually works out really well. And they program it out, so you got some interesting challenges and some interesting car track combinations.
So is that one jerk ruin everybody's good time? That's all it takes, especially in a simulation. I remember that
always a guy that just
trying to test NASCAR all the time. You're like, who in the you mother?
That's right. I walked over to the testers on Forza Motorsport 6, and I was like, okay, I don't want to test this game like this anymore. And they're like, why? I said, I want to test it as if people are really trying to race. And they were all like, whoa, we're trying to race. I'm like, no, you're not. You're trying to run into people and then mostly make it around the track. Well, that's the way people play this game. I know, but not everybody.
The something I took away from testing Need for Speed Pro Street when that game was around was we were supporting that game testing. It wasn't an in-house Tiburon. It was, I think, EA Canada at the time, one of the studios up there.
Yep.
And we did supplemental testing because they needed some help they actually gave us personas, and I learned that concept of a persona. Like, you will be a guy who builds cars. You're all about the speed wind tunnel thing, and you're not even going to go in the game. You're going to play the persona of an online guy. You're a guy who does this, and like I've actually used that quite a bit into my own stuff now, and thinking of like, what user is going to use this admin? What are they going to do? Well, I'm a dealer, or I'm a distributor, and I use it for these certain things. So
So
cool.
We do that at Microsoft too, the personas, and it feels more like ad hoc to me because we don't do as much matrix testing or test cases as I would like. In a sports game, you have statistics and you have, there's a matrix of try this with this and this with this, and that's all. And that doesn't happen with persona testing as much.
Yeah,
but
it's definitely
persona testing. You get a pretty good golden path flow through a certain type of play, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a supplemental to your more rigorous test cases and suites. I definitely wouldn't suggest anybody uses persona testing as their only line of defense, but it definitely does help with, I think, more along that play testing kind of aspect of, does this game do what we think it should do, more from a user acceptance than a quality and a at some point you're going to ship the washing machine when you got 2% fail cases of the electronics or whatever. But
it's probably taken me about 4 years to get the whole test organization behind a full test matrix, what I would call a test pass, but everybody uses a different word. And also TFCs, the test for completions. We use ECTs, which are exit criteria tests. It's the exact same thing. It needs to do these 5 things, otherwise it's not done. It's probably taken about 4 years before we really got into that. Anyway, so the other 2 games I played was Assassin's Creed Origins. I finished it all the way through. I thought Bayek was an amazing character. I thought the game was a B+ Assassin's Creed. I'm a huge Assassin's Creed fan. And Ancient Egypt doesn't really speak to me the same way that some of the other stuff spoke to me. But it was pretty, it was pretty good. Man, it was beautiful though, and it's so big. It was just the graphics and the engine and the land and the map. It was so huge and so amazing, and there's so much stuff to do. Luckily, I'm not obsessive compulsive, so I left a lot of that stuff done so I could move on to Red Dead Redemption.
Nice.
You all know it. Hell yeah. I just finished it last night. Well, I haven't done the epilogues, but I've finished the main course.
That is impressive.
That's cool. That's a thick steak of a game.
Did you finish it?
I did.
Raise your hand if you finished it. Oh, Victor's just got a picture. All right.
I'll show my face eventually. I have a bad haircut right now.
Different from any other year. Oh, damn.
There it is.
There it is. Rocky, what were you getting into 2018? What games were you playing?
Lots of games. So similar to what Nick was mentioning, I'm not tired of NBA Live. Like, it's been progressing every year. This year's a lot of fun. If you look, you'll see that I'm way up there as far as the different levels that you can attain, the hype levels that we've introduced to the game. So that's been cool. Playing, talked earlier with Vic about Ashen, which is a Dark Souls-like game. Spider-Man, God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, PlayStation Plus and Xbox with their live services. I'm getting free games every month, so I'm just starting to chip away at Soma, which I heard is a really cool kind of game. And yeah, man, I'm just gaming around the clock. And then the thing that's been cool this year is my kids are now 6 and 5, and they're into it. And so we got the Ninjago Lego video game and Pokemon Go for Christmas, and so we're gonna play Pokemon Go later today, which I totally missed that. Like I think the Pokemon thing, I missed that whole train when I was growing up, and now it's kind of an opportunity for me to actually like experience it for the first time, but with my kids. And so I'm really looking forward to that, to actually understand more than just Ash and collect them all, like get into the nuts and bolts of it.
Are you talking let's go or go? Like Let's Go, the Switch game?
Go on console. So go on Switch, and then I'm interested from there to see if it evolves into the AR as we're going around the neighborhood and finding gyms and everything else. So I'm interested to see if it progresses to that. So we're going to start on Switch and then see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I forgot to mention I played that one too. That was really good. It's the classic game, right? It's the one from 1996.
That's what I heard.
But with revamped graphics. Yes, I did conquer that one as well.
There you go. Nice. Yeah, for me, it's all new to me. Like, I'd read up on it. My understanding is basically, going back to the origins of it. And so I kind of get an opportunity to, I guess, play like a remaster, like a Ratchet and Clank remaster. I guess I'm getting to do that with Pokemon with the kids involved as well. So I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. So myself, as I think I mentioned off camera a little bit earlier today, I'm still not really much into gaming these days. I don't have a next gen console, so all my gaming is PC related, or old school Nintendo, Super Nintendo. My kid is thankfully still into that stuff. You know, he hasn't been tainted by the heavy graphics. You know, we started him young and early, so he's been playing Jaws lately on Nintendo. I've been having him play Jaws. You know, some old school classics. We've been playing Bubble Bobble. You know, some really cool stuff. One that surprised me that I'm going back to, I think it's a couple years old, I think it's on every system imaginable, was Sonic All-Star Racing Transformed. I don't think any of you guys have played this.
No, but I've heard.
I did.
I know about it.
I could not believe how good it was, because in my impression, most of the time when the Sega guys tried to emulate something Nintendo was doing, it was just never good. Whenever they tried to make the Sonic Mario Party, it was never good. But this game surprised me in just how tight and awesome the controls are, and it's awesome levels. You transform as you race. You can go from driving to flying to being in a boat. It's your typical Mario Kart kind of game. You get weapons and items, but it features a bunch of different Sega franchises and levels based off of some of those Sega franchises. So there's Golden Axe, there's Afterburner, and I'm getting all like goosebumpy because I hear the Afterburner.
Afterburner, man, yeah.
Golden Axe. What about Altered Beast?
Altered Beast is in there, I think. Or no, I'm thinking of Golden Axe. Sorry.
Golden Axe. Yeah. That's another good one.
Phantasy Star. So there's levels and characters based on all these franchises, and just I put it on because as a parent, I think I'm very overly sensitive to games about violence and fighting and guns. So I'm trying my best to shield him until he's a little older, at least. I hear the horror stories of kids going to school and shooting places up and stuff. And not that we own guns or anything, he could do that. But I don't think I'm very sensitive to it. So I always try to stick with sports games or racing and stuff like that. And so I got this on a bundle probably 3 years ago, never played it, installed it just thinking he'd play it for a couple hours and we'd go on to it. And it's been a daily game. We play it online. I've got my brother and my brother-in-law. I bought them $3 copies of it. So we all play together online and play. And that's been a lot of fun. Another game I picked up that I've been playing this year is a couch kind of multiplayer party game. It's called Ultimate Chicken Horse. Have you guys ever heard of this or played it?
No.
Yeah, I met the developer in Montreal. Ultimate Chicken Horse.
It is a ton of fun, and I'll give the synopsis if I can. Is basically you have a point A and a point B you're trying to get to, but it's blank, and you have to build platforms to get across to it. But you also get weapons like bows and arrows and fire hydrants and sticky stuff and glue, and basically you're trying to build a path from point A to point B, but you're also trying to make it where your opponents can't get to your path from point A to point B. So every round you get an item to place on the map. It's like a grid, and it's just a ton of fun. A cool little party game, and real simple. You just jump. All you can do is jump. There's no weapons or anything, but you try to get from point A to point B. But people are putting like glue on your pieces, and they're putting like an axe thing that spins around like in the way of your path, and you're trying to mess with their path. And the game's pretty smart too. You get points based on if you can make it. And if the path is too easy, the game will give you no points. It's like, nope, too easy, bro. Try again.
You can recognize that. That's interesting.
Yeah, trampolines and trap doors, and it's just like, again, for $3, I mean, we've had just a ton of fun with it. And I hate to be that PC Steam guy, but I'm playing games for 4 years ago, but having a blast and paying nothing for them. So
that's awesome.
I think that games, they live longer now. Like, it's okay to play a game that's old. Yeah. Hey, look, there's Victor.
Hey.
So now that we've all got kids, what I realized is a game that I started playing this year and I didn't talk about was Overcooked. Have you played it?
Yeah.
All right. So no matter how old,
is cool. Very fun game.
Maybe kid number 2 might be a little bit young there, Victor, but still, you put the controller in her hand and she'll love it.
I don't know what award it won, but it did win an award at the VG Awards. I know it won something, whether it's Best Indie Game or Best Newcomer or something like that. It did win the Overcooked 2.
It is intense. It is awesome. And you can play 1 player to 4 player. Very, very cool.
So
I love it. And super stressful, just like video games should be.
Sometimes it's nice to sit and relax.
I love those like couch play games where you can just, have a party style atmosphere. One would have thought they were going away maybe 10 years ago, but Nintendo will make sure that doesn't happen, and I'm glad it hasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Been playing a lot of Jackbox again. So we have people come over to play Jackbox, and I got some set up for us today. So don't you fret. We'll play a little bit of Jackbox today. That's it, man. Again, just old school PC Steam games that are couch play and stuff that are fun with the kid. So
that's awesome.
Let's move on, shall we? Now we got a couple topics we want to try to cover. I'm gonna pick one here at random. Let's go over the Video Game Awards again. We talked about it a little bit. Let's just kind of breeze through it. I know Game of the Year this year went to God of War. It beat out Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Red Dead Redemption 2, Celeste, Spider-Man, and Monster Hunter World. It also won Best Game Direction and Action Game category. It sounded like some of you guys play God of War, so is it worthy of Game of the Year?
I would say,
yeah, I think so. I think it's awesome. We have a lot of friends who worked on that game too. Anthony Demento from EA.
Okay.
Our buddy Sweeney.
Sweeney.
Yeah, it was
way.
Our buddy Corey Teblum. Yeah, that game, fantastic. Very major change in gameplay and camera angle and the freedom to control the camera, which they really avoided for a long time. The narrative approach. It's a different game. I know it's God of War. I know it's Kratos, but that and the puzzle solving is what makes it God of War. That could very easily have been something else.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they took some risks there. Like you mentioned, that lower camera angle, almost like Resident Evil 4 style thing. You're with an axe instead of the Blades of Chaos, at least to start. And even with Kratos, the character himself, instead of being that he could care less about anybody else, he has his goal and he'll murder anything in his path. It was amazing to see this dad-like role come into play. And when I saw in the trailer Atreus get introduced, I was like, ooh, I don't know about all this. But once I played the game, A+, really, really well done. I debated whether it should have gone to Red Dead Redemption 2. But yeah, God of War is an absolutely tremendous game.
Do you think it's unfair for like the games that pop in around like November? I mean, obviously it's the same as Oscars or anything else, right? Your timing is everything. People got a chance to stew on that for a long time. Red Dead was new.
I think
I'm just curious.
I think it factors into some degree. I think it's difficult to avoid, especially with the year we had. I mean, I was telling Preston earlier, thinking about today's chat, like I'm looking at the libraries on my systems. I mean, it's the games that came out this year. I mean, the consoles are like, they're full steam ahead, man. Like we are leveraging everything we can with them as much as possible. And so the games are flourishing and like peaking right now in this console generation. And this year, man, like it really came together. So many great games.
Yeah, I bet it can go either way though, right? Because you have the what's new and hot, right? You know, that's fresh in your mind versus, you know, that game that came out in February, you know, kind of forgot about it. So I bet it works both ways, but I think you're right though. The longer you get to stew on it, you kind of get more time, more articles, and stuff like that. Let's see. We talked about it earlier. Forza Horizon 4 wins Best Sports Racing Game. Interesting, again, that's the third year in a row that Forza has taken home in some, you know, inclination the best sports / racing titles. You're beating out all the sports games, you know, 3 years in a row. So,
I mean, if I could chime in there real quick, like that's a game I neglected to mention earlier. Forza Horizon 4, as far as racing games go, has had the longest tail for me in coming back to it. And a lot of it is like what Nick was deciding earlier, as far as that continuous development, reasons to come back. I know DLC just came out with the island that you can go race on. But man, like it is so incredibly well done. It might be my, I don't want to say favorite racing game of all time, but it's in that pantheon. Like it goes in the Hall of Fame. I'm not going to try to rank it. It's just in the Hall of Fame. It's got its bust and it's there. Like it is an amazingly well done game.
Yeah. Most of my work is on the core tech and the engine, but that team in Leamington Spa Playground, they love on that game, unlike many developers love on their IP. They're just really good at it. It's not so much a racing game though. I mean, you can certainly race in it, but I feel like the main sort of I want to do more is exploration, which is perfectly positioned for the current zeitgeist, I guess, of exploration, open world, exciting new things to do. And if you look, remember when we used to talk about the like Scott Rigby's work, that self-determination, they really nail a lot of those things. And what was interesting to me is that I haven't spoken to anybody from that group that actually is overly familiar with that self-determination theory for interactive entertainment in the sense of mastery, relatedness, and autonomy. However, it really does celebrate all three of those things. Any which way you want to experience how you explore your options and autonomy, or realize your mastery in getting good at driving or anything like that. It's just perfectly balanced for that kind of stuff. And I think what's also interesting is they've cracked the code from what was a problem before in games like that, where they're more content equals more tracks or more content equals more cars. That's true. To somebody like me, a car and a track is an experience. So the difference between the sort of the BMW Isetta on Nürburgring is a 15-minute lap because the Isetta is a three-wheeled car with like 17 horsepower, or some sort of 1,000 horsepower Hennessy Viper, which it makes it like a 9-minute lap. Those are two totally different experiences, and the combination is what makes the thing to do. However, with a game like Horizon, the cars are kind of important, but last version, Horizon 3, they had the Hot Wheels, so you had loops all of a sudden, and now you've got a new mountain to go to. You know, there's different things to do, and that's actually what creates that compelling content, not just a new color, you know.
Sure. I would agree with all of that. I think also what I appreciate about the game is it definitely does go in on the exploration, finding the little huts out there that have cars to be built that you can then add. And so I like a lot of that very much so. But I also appreciate that the seasons changing adds a new dynamic. Sometimes that car I was familiar with in summer is going to behave a little differently in another season. Right. That adds a little component to it. But then also the fact that if I just want to go in and I know I want to play Forza, and I can go to the summer thing and be like, oh, here's your objectives for the day. Here's your Forza-thon points you can earn for that Forza-specific car. Like, I can jump in the game, and it's like, hey, you can do your own thing, or we've got things you can do. Like, we're here for you. You want to race? We got you. I love that.
Yeah. It's a big deal. I'm actually, so it got Sports Game of the Year from the Video Game Awards, right? And so did Motorsport the year before. By the way, the trophy's like 15 inches tall, and I think weighs about 20 pounds. It is like a giant rock.
Nice. That's nice.
That's awesome.
I've got a picture of me holding it. It's just enormous. It's so freaking heavy.
Nice.
But now, what are some of the other groups that we appreciate that have best sports game?
Well, Rocket League, I mean, I know it's been out for a while, but they continue to support that game, and that is just, I mean, stupid fun. I mean, Rocket League came out of nowhere for me. Somebody's line at work said, hey, let's try this out. Man, that turned into some late evenings. I mean, that game is just, what I love about it is it's just core fundamentals, seemingly a very basic thing. If you've seen soccer, you can kind of put it together, but you're doing it with race cars, so there isn't a lot of mental taxation that's happening. It's just have fun and go after it, and it roughly is a sport. I mean, there's an e-sport around it now, so I think Rocket League still deserves credit for what they've done. That is a game that's a great one.
What a great transition into the next topic I wanted to talk about. Thank you, Rocky. and another note about this, and Nick will like this preparedness, was that was a game that was last the sports game winner before Forza's just come in and taken the category the last 3 years. So I do want to move on if I can. And we had a short time. I think this is the one topic we're probably going to get to before we wrap this thing up today. To me, the rise of Twitch. So Twitch has been around for a while, and I think it has always been a gaming streaming platform. I think there are other people using this. The Bubba Love Sponge show I know does a Twitch stream now. But to me, it's really come into fruition, or at least popularity, in the last year. Super popular now. I've even seen that they have content creation tools that you can create extensions for your channel, so you can kind of add chat bots and music requests and all sorts of extensions into these. So people are now developing for Twitch to increase the broadcaster's experience and how he interacts with his audience. The Dota tournament this year, Day of the Ancients, I think is what it's called. $25 million prize giveaway was in the end there. I mean, I don't think to one person, but I think over the tournament they gave away $25 million. So huge dollars coming in for streaming. And as much of a gamer as I am, I know we all worked on EA Sports MMA, which had the nice live stream feature. It still surprises me that kind of cash and money is behind some of these e-tournaments. And I wanted to get your guys' thought just in general. I don't think we've done much in the video game console industry to support this type of motion, other than PlayStation 4, I think, enabling Twitch directly from the console. I'm not sure if Xbox One does that.
I believe they have Mixer. It's like their Twitch-like thing. I think it's called Mixer.
But them going right to Twitch and understanding and kind of being pre-adopters of that, just what do you guys think of just what it's doing right now? And are you guys or any of the teams you're working on like really thinking about this and how we can integrate this more into kind of the console world?
I was working for the platform for Microsoft. Xbox is a big part of the conversation that whenever we talk about anything we want to do. So integrating Mixer and being friendly to things like Twitch or whatever else anybody else wants to stream on is actually pretty important. It becomes even more important with subscription-based services and making sure that some of those add-ons and some of that like voting buttons and chat bots and rewards, that's actually a big deal. How do I reward you in the game that I'm playing when you're not playing it, but make it kind of seamless and convenient? That's all pretty cool. I don't know. It's interesting. I feel like it'd be hard to imagine it getting more popular. I'll say that. I don't think it's going away, but it's hard to imagine how much bigger it could possibly get. I spent some time with a guy, Chad Mustard, who makes what is he?
Making names up now, Nick. Come on.
Isn't it? I think it's like Mustard Plays. I think anyway. But he says for somewhere between 8 and 6 hours a day, he plays Fortnite because people tune in to watch Fortnite.
I don't understand this. I don't understand it. As much of a gamer as I am, I don't want to watch somebody else play games.
That's not the thing. These people, they just leave it on and they watch it. But the thing is that he has to play something that other people are playing or other people are watching. So people play stuff that they watch, but they only watch stuff that they play. So we've got this kind of loop where certain cohorts of users or viewers stay with a certain game. That's cool. It becomes their hobby, like we talked about before. But what takes place? What happens next year, 2 years from now? It's got to change, right? It's got to evolve. I also wonder about these people that literally play the game for 8, 10. Some of these people are playing 16 hours a day for 5 days a week,
Sometimes they go hard, yeah.
But then if you look at the esports numbers, I just saw the article came out yesterday or this week or something. The top 10, they're all like Dota and League of Legends. And it's like 75 million viewers. And then less than 100.
It falls pretty precipitously, yeah.
To be honest with you, like if the analogy I make for like professional esports athletes is it's closest to the NFL than any other pro sport. Like your reflexive skills are short span. The demand on you is very high, and you may or may not get paid, right? And if you fall off, that's your money. Huh. It's closer to the NFL than say the NBA or the MLB. By the way, kids, play baseball if you're going to play a pro sport. But yeah,
if you want big money.
it's very demanding. Like I think people think it's just like something you can just do or maybe I'll play. You can't. No. Like you're not going to compete with these kids, and the amount of time they put in is not the kind of time you can do if you have a job unless you're just extremely talented. But once again, you better find a game that's going to work for you.
Yeah. But there's the other side of it too, right? You don't have to just be good at the game. That helps. But you have to be able to play the game all day long. You have to have an 8-hour stream up there. Otherwise, people don't accidentally come across your stream. But they're not going to come across your stream anyway because you're playing you're playing Overcooked and nobody watches Overcooked. They all watch something else. Red Dead. Nobody watches Red Dead, let's be honest.
Well, one thing I think that Preston mentioned earlier, I kind of had the same sentiment where when the rise of this was coming along, it's like, man, I would rather be playing a video game than watching a video game. How does that make sense? And so Ninja, who's like the premier streamer right now, he was being interviewed on a talk show, I can't remember which, and this question was posed to him, and he said, it's very similar to people who like sports. Like me, personally, I love basketball. But I play a basketball video game. Couldn't I be outside playing basketball? Why am I playing a basketball video game? It's just another avenue of enjoying something. Sure. And what you guys can do in Fortnite, I mean, it's highly skilled stuff. And so there are people that enjoy playing Fortnite. There are people like me like playing basketball, but I'm still going to watch NBA games. These guys are the best of the best. They do things I could never possibly do. And I understand the fundamentals of the game, so I can appreciate it that much more. And so that kind of turned a little bit of a switch in me when I heard Ninja mention that. I was like, oh, I kind of get it. Although for me, I wouldn't say I'm a regular Twitch watcher. If I'm watching something online, it's like a how to beat this boss in Dark Souls 3 because you've been struggling 20 times in a row now or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Makes a lot of sense.
I watch games for reference all the time to
Mm.
better myself, the same way I'd watch a jiu-jitsu video or watch somebody, you know, teach some tutorial for reference to better myself all the time. For entertainment, I might have missed it. Maybe it's because I'm the oldest child. I don't have the same level of mirror neuron response, but like it's, you know, to watch. Everybody has a reason.
Yep.
I mean,
I'm always looking for a good streamer that does some academic deconstruction of the mechanics that they're working through. Victor, you'd be great at that. I would watch that all the time. I work with a creative director right now that does a little bit of it. That'd be cool.
I said, write the check. I'm in. No, I think that sounds like a good idea.
The part I do understand, being a retro old school nerd, and I go way back to the BBS days. You know, I was on my little 1400 baud modem chatting with people in forums and chat rooms before they were even a thing, you know, and IRC, internet relay chat, and stuff like that. So part of me understands the community aspect you get, where you get a group of guys, and these are my guys, and I hang out, and it's more about the chat and what's going on, and the other thing is just kind of the passive activity, and you kind of get in this environment. But yeah, makes a lot of sense though. You said Rocky, and I think maybe those two combined is really what drives this thing. And it's the old fart, he doesn't quite get it yet.
I think the other thing too that's interesting from a development perspective, just two things off the top of my head. One, I love when the game comes out and I can hop on and just watch people play. Like we talk about personas, you'll start to see the guy that's frustrated by this particular mechanic, or the guy that really likes this mode, and you can begin to understand why he really likes that mode, or you're getting like legit feedback. Like they don't realize that an NBA Live developer is watching, so when they talk harshly about a certain something or talk positively about a certain something, I feel like I'm getting like actual feedback, which is great. But then there's also something, Amy Hennig, a while back, I was reading an interview with her, and she talked about that we're working through some designs, and someone asked the question like, okay, so what's the streamer's experience as part of this? And it kind of struck her. She's like, wow, that's a thing to think about now. Yeah. And now when I'm working through designs or thinking about features, sometimes I wonder, okay, how is this going to be for a stream? Is this going to be exciting? Is this going to be compelling? Is there an opportunity here to bring more people in, or are people going to want to see this? Is there the risk reward that people kind of understand? A guy recently was talking about, it's when in football, when the pass is in the air, that's most exciting, not when it's caught, right? So if you have a game that can give you those pass in the air moments where it might go this way, it might go that way, that's what's really exciting. And if you can continue to incorporate those into your game, you can have a great streaming experience. And so I've been fascinated by that sort of stuff. Although Preston, I too am an old fart, and as much as I'm like exploring it, I'm still like sometimes like, why is this a thing, you know? But it's a thing, and that's the important thing to understand, you know.
You know, Rocky, when we worked together a while ago, you did a report on multi-currency model in Fallout. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So I actually still remember that stuff pretty well, and I use it a lot when we talk about, because multi-currency always didn't make sense to me. I'm like, just one currency, stop making it complicated. But you brought some clarity to it. Have you guys sat down and like deconstructed what makes something viewable?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we've had like a super organized like meeting that is set up to specifically talk about that. It's a subject that will come up, and I think that's cool in a way that it's now something that it's something to be thought about, that it just comes up organically in conversation. So I won't say that we had like a 2-hour sit down where some you know, consultant came in and said, here's all the telemetry and the things to think about and what creates success. We haven't had anything like that, but I can say that it is something that does come up, which I think is worthwhile. It's
tough because if it just comes up organically, that makes me think that people are just giving opinions rather than actually showing examples and evidence as to this is popular and this is popular. They both have the same thing, so now we know this is true.
That's fair.
I would be cautious to sort of assign myself to any strategy without that kind of background.
Yeah, no,
I don't believe people's opinions anymore, except for Victor. I believe his.
One last thing on it, I thought it was really interesting that I saw. I don't know how they're doing it, but people are playing like The Legend of Zelda: The Link to the Past somehow on the Super Nintendo, but they're doing it on a Twitch stream, and you can actually donate or use the currency they have. I can't remember if it's cheers or gems or whatever, and disrupt their game. You can either do an instant kill for so many points. You can like give the person items.
Yeah.
Real weird, you know, that you touched on, like the interactivity of the audience, you know, being able to do things and for the streamer. So I thought it was really interesting. Again, I know Twitch is not new. It's been around for at least 4 or 5 years, but just it seems like last year or two, it's really got traction. And, there are some stars on the horizon just being able to stream and to just the way that whole thing is no longer just you're watching a guy and it's the little corner of the guy playing it. There's chats going on, so I thought it was pretty cool.
Wait. So let me ask a somewhat related question.
Yeah.
Did anybody see the new Black Mirror?
Yes.
See, quote unquote, see
last night.
The interactive one?
Yeah.
So
I haven't done it yet.
It's related, Preston. It's you don't necessarily play it actively like a game, but there are certainly decisions to be made, and it's based on a choose your own adventure style game / book. So you can actually make decisions and change things. Like these formats are changing. It's interesting to seeing where they'll go, but like this happened just like yesterday, right? This is brand spanking new.
Yeah.
They had one for Puss in Boots.
They did.
I didn't play that one either.
I got through Black Mirror last night. I thought that was a pretty cool experience. It has the meta. It's about a guy making a choose your own adventure book into a choose your own adventure video game being watched by someone who's watching a choose your own adventure Netflix, but it was a pretty cool experience. I definitely got something out of it. Not my favorite Black Mirror episode ever, but I certainly, from a technical achievement perspective, logistically, good Lord. I mean,
right. Kudos to them just for the planning. I think I feel the same way, Rocky. It was like it was a good first try at bringing this really mainstream to Netflix and seeing what people think about it. And I think next time it'll be even better. But man, the planning, it's not like games, right? You have to film that stuff. You have to design that game.
Exactly. You can't accidentally mess up and be like, ooh, we need to create that set again. And do we have so-and-so casted now to do that scene again? Are they free? I mean, the logistics of that must have been insane. Like I actually have a couple articles bookmarked. I think Wired wrote up one on what it took to put that thing together. So that I'm fascinated by. Kevin Feige and what he's done with Marvel. I mean, that is ridiculous what they've done with those Marvel movies. I know some people aren't the biggest fan of them. They consider it like death of cinema with all this sort of approach. But logistically, from a planning perspective, especially with a producer's type mind, I mean, I'm just like, how in the world? And then the X factors. Oh, by the way, you can use Spider-Man now in the next movie. Oh, how do we accommodate that? I mean, that's just remarkable to me.
Nice, man. Well, unfortunately, gents, we'll move into our final segment before I have a little bit of fun and wrap this thing up. So I like to do this every year. Last year, I asked you guys what you're most looking forward to in 2018. And since we haven't seen Rocky, it was what was he looking forward to in 2017. So I'm going to follow back on those. I know, Nick, you mentioned you're looking forward basically to different experiences coming to the console world, seeing how the industry will give more entertainment and hobby for a longer time. So I know we touched on some of that today. Your final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's what we see when we see Game Pass, crossplay, and everything becoming software as a service. How do we maintain over a long tail on purpose rather than the way a game like the games that you played, Preston? You could argue that some of your retro games have the longest tail of all.
I said you did predict that. You said, I guarantee that this time next year, we'll be talking about this as being a thing. And I think you were spot on.
Yeah.
Victor, last year you mentioned looking forward to Shadow of the Colossus in HD.
Hey.
Did you get a chance to
it's still great. I mean, it's as good as it's ever been, and it looks great. Actually got to speak to some of the developers who made that. They're out in Texas. Really good group of guys. They had their own custom engine. And mostly what they do is just convert games, but they did a heck of a job with that one. So, I'm really proud of how that turned out for them.
Who was that?
And the game
what was that
fun.
studio's name, Victor?
I want to say it's Blue Castle, Blue something out of Austin.
Nice. You also mentioned that your new gig will have you spending time in theme parks, more interactive entertainment, exploring the edges of digital entertainment. Did those things occur?
Yes, every day. Lots of I would say opportunity to push the envelope and create new formats and figure out ways to bring what we brought to screens for so many years to people in location-based entertainment. And I'm learning every day. I'm teaching and learning every single day. So, if you guys have tips and can help me with my job, I welcome that.
Nice. Rocky, last time we saw you was on the tail end of the 2016 show. So you're looking forward to in 2017 was just being surprised by something. So I know that's a hard one to recover. I think you were just looking for the next big, something that's new, exciting, because we've been recycling a lot of these open world games and recycling these third-person shooters and first-person shooters. And do you recall anything kind of jumping out and exciting in the last 2 years that was just so different and unique?
Nothing immediately comes to mind. I still think on occasion I get a little bit of that fatigue playing an open world game that has a similar kind of formula to it. But I still find myself going back to them. I think there's something to be said for just tried and true genres of game that really like. I think, actually, you know what? Here's one that really has surprised me. So I recently got the Xbox One X as part of this all access thing that they were putting together. It was almost like a smartphone plan. You can do these monthly payments and you get the console day one and keep it, and you get Xbox Live and Game Pass and all of that, right? Xbox Game Pass, man, I am continuing to be delighted by the games they drop on that service. I'll be in the middle of one and discover, oh, Ori and the Blind Forest is now available. That's cool. Or, hey, Forza Horizon 4, day one. Not one of these, oh, we're going to let it be in retail for a week and then it'll be on Game Pass. No, like at midnight, I'm playing Forza Horizon 4. I love that about these subscription services. I think Origin is going in a similar direction. A lot of these other services as well recognize that if they can develop these groups now that are used to this sort of thing, when it gets to the stuff that Phil Spencer is talking about, where Game Pass being available on any device, once they've got you on that subscription service, I imagine what PlayStation Plus is going to be able to do, Origin, Epic Game Store, that I think is an interesting thing moving forward. The subscription service model, and I'm just getting games thrown at me, and I love that.
Those were interesting because I know, back in the day when we were all together, that was dabbled on 8 years ago, that concept, just talking about those things. So to see it kind of really come to fruition, I know some of these services have been around a little bit. But it's interesting, I think the Xbox Pass too, you don't just get Xbox games, there are other publishers. So it's not like what you're seeing with cable right now is you have to go, well, I have a CBS Pass, I have a Netflix, I have a Hulu, I have an HBO, I have a Showtime, where you're individually piecing these out, that the game industry's figured out a way to kind of somehow collaboratively allow these things to be pushed to the certain console or first party.
Yeah, which I think is fantastic about it. I mean, Microsoft they have that control over first party to say, yeah, well, you'll be there day one for Game Pass, but it's great to have opportunities to Wasteland 2. I mentioned Ori, Ashen I was talking about earlier. I mean, Ashen I probably may have missed out on entirely, but because it showed up on Game Pass and I saw some cool early rumblings about it, I figured I'd give it a try. Next thing I knew, I'm 20 hours deep into this thing, and really because of Game Pass. And so whether it's Origin, Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, PlayStation Now, really. I'm just interested where these things go moving forward, because I feel like if they handle it properly, that can be a really interesting proposition for people that just love to play games like myself.
Nice. All right. Well,
I cannot believe how many video games Rocky plays.
Oh, dude, I live and breathe it, man. Ask me about movies and TV shows, I'll have no clue what's going on. But ask me about some game that came out, and I should be up to speed.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
I'm happy and jealous at the same time. But also, I like my sleep, and I know you're sacrificing that.
the trick now is getting the kids to be involved in it. So it's, I'm gaming, but I'm doing it with them as well,
Nice. So let's look forward to 2019 then. Nick, what are you most excited for? What are you looking forward to in 2019?
Looking forward to. For the gaming world, I'm looking forward to a little bit of settling. We've had a lot of interesting stuff happen. We've seen some big spikes, AR, VR, esports. I'd like to seeing what Rocky was talking about with Game Pass, and that I think that constant pressure will create more opportunities for different types of gaming experiences. I've seen a little bit, but I haven't played too much of some of the others. Sort of what was it, like Dear Esther and Frequency? Some of those kind of off the beaten path. I'd like to see those things become more. I think that with the subscription-based service, more people will be willing to try them, and then they will get more opportunity, and then it'll grow. I'm interested in, I really, truly, strongly believe in that, 2A gaming, the farm league gaming, that mid-core. I believe in that. It just needs to find a place to land. There's so many people that are willing to play games. Phil Spencer talks about it, but at the same time, if he's putting out Forza Motorsport and Halo Champions Edition, they're going to be, hardcore only. Only in the Blind Forest is a great example of it attracted so many people, but it was brutal hard. I couldn't even get past it. But everybody was there ready for it, ready to consume it. And with something like Game Pass, they just you missed the boat because you could have had the funnel could have been wider for an easier or more engaging experience. But otherwise, it catered directly to that tiny little super platformer, Super Meat Boy kind of world. I'd like to see that kind of grow. That way we get more people, there's more people playing games. There's another thing that I'm interested in watching, which is what I would call the market correction of what we talked about before, esports and streaming games. It's not going to go away at all, but everybody's pursuing it now. And by everybody, I mean businesses. And businesses need to have a reason for doing it. And I'm not sure that it supplies the type of expenditures I'm seeing.
We don't want to see the shovelware of e-streams.
Yeah, a random guy in his den streaming a video game, totally cool. You can do that as long as he's got the free time to do it, and who knows what his free time is. But when we get to like bigger productions, they need to be turning a profit, or at least finding a way to validate its experience in the terms of what's important to the business. I'm not sure that I've seen that everywhere. So I think what we'll see is a market correction and a right sizing of how much commercial owned streaming there is out there, and thus a right sizing of how much Rocky needs to think about it in his next game design.
Yeah, I wonder how corporate sponsorships will play into it. There's the existing deals. Some people threw some significant money. When will they re-up on that next deal? Like you mentioned, like what's their reason to want to re-up on that deal? Are they going to re-up on that deal for the same amount or more, or will it come down as part of that market correction where they start to understand this is actually the reach we get through this with this partnership affiliation, whatever it may be. So I would say I'm interested in that as well.
Yeah. The numbers will guide the sponsorship. And right now I'm cautiously skeptical. How's that?
Nice. Victor, what are you looking forward to in 2019?
I'm actually looking forward to a lot of the ninja style games that are coming out with this very deep gameplay. I know Insomniac is coming out with one.
Yeah.
I know that From Software is coming out with one.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing if somebody can turn the corner on really deep, visceral combat mechanics. I'm also, and I keep hope, but I don't think it's going to happen in 2019. But I'm still looking for somebody to create an environment that allows people who like buttons and reflexive combat to get in a group fight. And I've wanted this for 10 to 15 years. I've wanted that big group fighter. And I haven't seen it yet. But the funny thing is with pitch axes and shovels, Fortnite is about as close as we've gotten so far. I think it's going to happen eventually. And I think there will be a very large scale game for people who don't like to shoot. We'll see.
Did For Honor? I don't know if you ever got to play For Honor. Did it scratch any of the ditch for you?
Honor, For Honor is so good, so good. Solid game. Like if we could, I think you're right. Let me not take anything away. For Honor did it.
Yeah, that's our boy Jason Vandenberg. He's up here at ArenaNet. I had lunch with him a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, no, they totally did it. I want to see that. I want to see like Fortnite or like Overwatch growth for something with that type of combat. But yes, they are pioneers. Let me not take anything away. That game is awesome.
Cool.
Nice. Rocky, what you looking forward to in 2000?
I'm going to play that game.
Nick hinted at it earlier. I'm very much the guy that likes story games. I like games that are just gameplay with no story involved whatsoever. There's a place in my heart for that, as you all know. Like I just love games, right? But I'm interested in story games. There was the thing about the death of single player, and part of me was like, "Ooh, I hope that's not the case." Call of Duty comes out, multiplayer only. Don't even bother with the single player. Then you got the AA games. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is one that classified in there, and I'm chipping away at that. Definitely recommend headphones for that one. That's a great game with headphones on. But I love story in games, and I'm interested in with where tools are, things like Unity and whatnot. Development budgets for single player games seem to be one of the top reasons that people are like, yeah, we just can't invest in something like that where you finish it in a weekend or you streamed it and now there's no inclination to buy the game yourself because you just watched it. I'm interested to see where story can go moving forward. And I think AA games tend to have a more experimental approach. They're less risk averse. And that's what I'm interested in, how people tell stories interactively in the next year or so.
Nice.
That's got to be a big part of what's going on with the EA Sports games right now, too. So pay attention, right? Yeah. Absolutely. I was really impressed with, I should have been impressed, and I was expecting to be impressed, and I was still impressed with Red Dead Redemption. It's just really good.
I find that surprising because I know you were very anti-open world. I remember in chatting with you that it was the easy thing. Like make this open world approach, and just it's the easy way out.
Yes, so I totally am. I still am. I still think open world games are the easy way out. I think that what you do is you can create a bunch of little tiny interesting things, semi-interesting things to do, and they don't have to actually have any sort of linear progression to them. However, Red Dead Redemption has a very constricted linear experience that it wants you to have. It is the story, and that story has different things that you can do in it. Frankly, it didn't need to be an open world game. It could have just put it almost does one mission in front of the next. And then it would have been completely acceptable, just a little bit shorter.
Interesting. All right, gentlemen, we've come to that corner. Final thoughts. Start with Victor.
If ever there was a leave it in the comments moment, the one thing that I will be curious about is what people who play games want out of theme parks and their experience, and what they want to do in the land and beyond going in, riding a ride, or going in and, watching a show. What do you want to do if there was an interactive component? That is a very selfish request, but I'm just curious. You guys can hit me up. You can DM me. I'm just looking for where we're going outside of the screen. So, that's my final thought on that.
So Vic, if I could real quick, I don't have a silver bullet for that, but the first thing that jumped in my mind, probably because I was just talking about it, I want something where I immediately want to, with my kids right afterward, tell the stories of what we just experienced. If you can give me like stories to experience that as soon as it's done, Mace, do you remember when this happened? That was so crazy. And Kayla, when you took care of that, that was so awesome. And the teamwork, like if I can come off that thing, just wanting to tell stories and like live it again effectively, I think there's something perhaps powerful to that.
There are people on my team who will love you, Rocky. Thanks, man.
Nick, final thoughts.
I was thinking real similar lines to Victor, except maybe a little bit broader. There is an interesting thing happening with the bigger stretch of games to different types of players. My wife has been playing more games than ever these last couple of years because of the advent of that AA gaming, that farm league gaming that gives experiences that she's more interested in than Zero Dawn. I'd like to know. I'm interested to kind of think about and hear other people's thoughts about the interaction of games to the world that you live in, your hobby as you kind of experience your hobby outside of the game. Like, do you have meetups? Do you talk about Dark Souls 3? We do at work, but what about everybody else? What do they meet up somewhere? Do they do something? Would they like something like that? And there's always this nagging thought in my mind about how can I get sort of Bejeweled and Battlefield to still occupy the same thought in my mind or the same space in my world or something like that. That's pretty much science fiction, but it's an interesting thought experiment for me. And other people are smarter, so think up interesting ideas for me.
Rocky, final thoughts.
I'll keep it short and sweet. I think, and it's going to sound sappy, but I just appreciate the opportunity to hang out and chat with you guys. I look forward to this every year. I was bummed that I had to miss out last year. I wasn't able to swing it, but I just love this opportunity to sit and chat with you guys and talk games because, clearly I love games, talking games, man. I'm all about it, and so I just appreciate the opportunity. It's always good to catch up with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not in the industry anymore, but it's
same
fun to have these conversations, and it still brings a smile, to know that there's some very smart people out there thinking about these things, and just I miss working with all you guys, and glad we can do this once a year.
Preston, you're the best. You're just amazing. Thank you so much. This is one of my favorite parts of the year.
every now and then I can get it all together, my friend. It takes a lot of effort, but every now and then we can corral the cats and get them going, and glad you can join us. All right.
That's right.
Unfortunately, we had to cut Jackbox here. We're just short on time today, so I am going to be streaming live tomorrow. If anybody wants to, they can come mess with me or something. I'll get you the stream information. Maybe you guys will join me tomorrow night, somewhere between 9 and midnight or something like that. We'll be streaming Jackbox. But all right, we're gonna wrap this thing up. Thanks for watching, tuning in. I am Preston. That is Victor. I don't see him. He's not there. That is Nick. Rocky. Victor is just, I can't get him up. I see his picture, but he's frozen. All right. Anyways, we're gonna wrap it up. This was the 2018 Design Forum podcast. Hope to see you all next year. Until then, see you.
Cheers.